Do you have any advice on how we could become this? Because if all the room is trying to learn how to write great prompts, we're all wasting a lot of time trying to learn. But how can we accelerate this so that we're learning faster?
Well, like I said, you can use ChatGPT to help you to learn how to do that by having it write your prompts like I suggested. All you need to do is type prompt engineer on YouTube, and you'll be what, 1 million videos, I would say, comes up. Probably. Yeah. That's your resource out there.
Yeah, the second thing I do with my kids, like riding a bike, you've got to jump on and start riding, and eventually you'll wipe it out. Honestly, it's the more you use it, the better you get at it. You think of it as a toolkit.
Well, it's also interesting because we have this, as humans, we're used to one-to-one communication. And somehow, subconsciously, you're thinking of this, it's almost like in the old days, because it's the same user interface. There used to be a human agent, like you have a problem with your Amazon return, there's going to be a human behind you're chatting to. You're not chatting to a single entity, you're actually chatting to potentially infinite different entities if you have a sense. So you can actually, the way you're interacting with the chatbot, if you can expand your eyes thinking about that, it'll really help you with your object engineering.
Yeah. There's also really good kind of guides online. So there's a company called Anthropic, and they do Claude, and they have like really good prompt engineering library. And I don't know, it's like almost recursively, I think if you had to just do this, help ChatGPT create the prompt for you, and then read the prompt library and use the right prompt initially to help it get a better prompt, if you would get into results, right? So, I'd start there. There's a really good kind of strategy for that.
Yeah.
So the phrase prompt engineer is quite grandiose. Sounds kind of terrifying, right? Because it's engineering and it's sort of maybe there's lots of skill in that. There is there, but ultimately you're learning how to ask a question.
All of you can be expert prompt engineers. So here's a good analogy. I've helped to shoot people about this. Okay, how many of you can play a musical instrument? Okay, how many can play the guitar? Okay, how many of you can play a really difficult one like tuba or something like that? Trumpet. Anyway, here's the point. Here's the issue. So the reason why I say that is the ChatGPT is like a guitar. Yeah, within 5 minutes I can show you an E chord and you can get sound out. Within 20 minutes I can give you 4 chords and you can actually play a song. It doesn't mean you're an expert. So at the limit, all instruments to get mastery are equally difficult. So that's why I think it's a little bit difficult to get your head around the phenomenon of ChatGPT because it makes it seem so easy. So here's prompt engineering, the exercise Michael gave earlier, trying to identify the articles, okay? It was written by the AI. I can guarantee you, I can give it a prompt that you'll never be able to identify that it was AI. That's a prompt. It's an education. For instance, did you guys know that, for instance, any article that you might want to write, you can have ChatGPT write in the voice of, pick an author. So if I wanted to write an article about Cape Cod Island in the voice of George Orwell, it could do that. In the voice of Ernest Hemingway, it could do that. Okay, so there's a little example, a little bit of additional knowledge of how to instruct these large language models, give you that little edge. So it's like a guitar. The learning curve is really easy. It's not like a trumpet where you can't even get a sound out, which I think most systems in the old days was like a trumpet, right? I don't know, it's like, how do I get this to work? Some expense systems are like, we won't mention any names. But, so because it's like a guitar, you can get started, but you need to learn. So eventually, like we said before, the ones who really thrive, and it's going to be a transition here. There's a disruption that we're living in right now. We're all experiencing disruption right now. It will be those who are experts in their domain, who are also very good prompt engineers. And I think that's important as well. It's that domain expertise it's not a guitar analogy, it's something that I did, and it's not fascinating in the sense it felt. A year ago, I decided I'd write an IT governance handbook, because why wouldn't it? And I asked ChatGPT what would the content of the government's handbook be, what the content page would look like, and it gave me a version. And I said, what happens if I turn up the code bit and you turn down, the GDPR, and sort of played around with it. And then I just thought, well, can you write chapter 1 for me? And it did. So when I got over that, I then actually wrote the handbook with ChatGPT, and at every stage I was just refining my prompt engineering. That's a really banal use case, but the auditors loved it. And that's how the domain expertise I have around that control governance is useful, and as well as the prompt itself. But just give you a little nugget, so there's a tip to walk away with. So you can start your journey by actually using ChatGPT, if you like, if that's your LLM or lots of others, to actually write your prompt for you. So it's actually interactive prompt engineering. So you just tell ChatGPT, I would like to write a prompt that with which I can instruct you to do this for me. Okay? Now, then you say, ask me the questions that you need to know so that you can write the prompt for me. Then it'll ask you a series of questions. Then you answer those questions, and another pro tip, shift return gives you a line item, which ChatGPT actually, it sees it as a different piece of content. Okay, so it'll ask you 4 questions, and you go answer, shift return, answer those 4. And then it'll generate you an amazing prompt that you would not have been able to generate yourself, that you can now reuse to do that sort of work in the future.
So disclaimer, don't put in as a corporate travel manager. You got job for me. So I don't expect me to be the corporate travel manager. I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Is already built for you to run on your stack, so you don't have to become a prompt engineer. You don't have to run these models yourself. There are companies that have co-pilots that are able to do some of these tasks for you, which don't require prompting per se. So if you're trying to build AI agents, yes, absolutely, you need to become a prompt engineer, then establish this technology at a stack. But there are co-pilots that are doing the day-to-day job, which are already integrated, that can do some of the knowledge sharing and getting you access to information. So, as much as we talk about the future, there are things you can deploy today that help you improve internal efficiencies.
I think this is about exposure as much as anything. I was actually taking the time to try and involve the interaction away from being a game. Where I said with my 8-year-old son, we asked it to write a story about a worm that likes cake, to actually trying to use it as a tool. And that is essentially an investment of time, and being there and understanding and trying and playing that. And to a certain degree, anyone who's interacted with ChatGPT in the first instance, I think it's pretty much the first thing that everyone does is write a funny story or tell me something or do something creative, like a pirate, because I want to be impressed to find this new technology. Whereas in actual fact, this is about, what do you say, learning the guitar as opposed to just strumming and listening to it.
Yeah, so we're taking kind of a step back again to kind of go into the definition world again. We've talked a bit about large action models, and I've also heard the terms weak AI versus strong AI versus super AI. Does anyone want to take a stab at it? Well, large action models is a concept. It doesn't exist yet. I'm not quite sure that would exist. Because in the end, it's saying here's a model that actually can do something. Interestingly, all the AI-enabled physical devices, like the Tesla FSDs or the bots, none of them are using generative AI. And that's for a reason. So what's more large action than these things, right? So we'll see how that develops. But action model coming out of generative AI, I can see a lot of issues why that'd be very difficult.
Okay. I think, with the actions part of it, I think agents will at least fill a lot of that space, right? It will peak. And either we think about efficiency and certain process, we basically created 108 agents. This is the pilot. 108 agents that replaced effectively our whole team, and we took a process down from 3 months to 1.5 days. And that's with the action, right? So I think large action models is one thing. In terms of the gradations of AI, Everyone's speaking about AGI coming up. Predictions as soon as like 27, 27. And there's a bit of like issue around what AGI means. But generally it's accepted that it's smarter than anyone on Earth, basically. So if that happens by 2050, I think it'll be kind of very interesting. Right now we have a graduate level but when that does happen, there are a bunch of theories around kind of what happens at that point. But it'll be a bit of a wild ride.
Yes, that's when we start into this apocalyptic discussion that we're talking about. But let's talk about risk, but let's keep it in the realm of kind of within Babel right now. What are some of the big risks when it comes to generative AI and using Babel?
I think just from I create and design systems for agency. I think some of the risk that's out there is not engaging with this technology. That would be my biggest point. So if you don't engage with this is the tidal wave of new creativity. This is something that needs to be hot, but it's coming whether you like it or not. And ultimately, it's an interesting, like I say, it's a dichotomy. Travel, it has this side of it which is very robotic, very repetitive, very functional, but fundamentally it's providing something that is experiential. Now, as clever as AI is, it doesn't experience. It doesn't know what fun is. It can't taste food. It can't have that human. So I think in terms of risk towards a lot of the exhibitors down in the hall there, in the travel, in the BTS, and I've been in travel industry my whole life, there is genuine risk to some of those businesses that they won't be here in 5 years if they don't engage with these things. And that's not to be apocalyptic. I think that's just the fact of the matter is that there is a scale coming to the ability to be able to handle business in a robotic way. For a lot of the things that can be repeated, that represents real risk. But it also represents real opportunity to be the human and the experiential part and not a robot. And I think that's what people really need to engage with if we talk about the apocalypse as such. But it is an absolutely huge opportunity for the people that really engage to leverage the technology. From a travel manager's point of view, as Keith has talked about, there's great opportunity to create a resource to free yourself from the grunge and the repetitive tasks. But inside of the agency systems, there is a gap between the architecture of the more modern agencies who have the ability to plug this stuff in easily to some of other agencies who may not be engaging potentially with large databases or the ability to make what data available to the model. And I think that's a fundamental structural issue inside of some of the agencies that are there. And it would be foolish not to ignore that. So from a risk point of view, we joked a couple of times about the cataclysm and the apocalypse. I don't think it's an apocalypse aside, but it will be.
You can really stop it. And there are the equivalents of telephone operators, if you think of jobs and functions today. And they will not exist. And that's just a fact of life. And it's not taken into account, but I always use it. Think about law parity, for example. A job that is entirely research-based is dependent on you having a knowledge of a particular thing or knowing where to find that thing for your legal representative. That is a role that will fundamentally disappear because we'll be able to say, give you the case law on this instance to the model and never give it to the insect. So not just the right, if it says, let me do this right, we actually know there's always going to be examples or samples. It's incorporating for a case law that never exists. But I'd say if you take away the idea of hallucination, and you look at it from a purely from a conceptual point of view, that is exactly the conceptual interview. Yeah, and I agree with the practical implementation of that. It holds many challenges, and I think there are the requirement for check and balance is super important. And I think that's true across any technology. I do believe that risk is there. So I think from an agency point of view, from the people in the hall down there, engagement from your agent to make sure they're looking at this stuff and being able to surface information is super important. But also, I think the conversation has to be about where value lies. Facts have changed the conversation because the other risk is, best case scenario, AI fatigue, because lots of people will be sprinting it everywhere like chip stuff and not getting anything from it, but stern looks from your financial control department saying why are you spending all this money. So it has to be value oriented.
doing that for the sake of doing it.
See, I always say that too. I think it is a concern because as a consumer, as a user, as the buyer. So we've been working on this for 10 years, but you can literally start up 6 weeks ago, buy an OpenAI API, swap a front and say we're an AI company. So how do you actually, how can you evaluate these things in terms of solutions? Because on a one-off basis, it may actually work, right? But this is does it work 100 times over 100 times, etc. And that's, at scale, you won't really know that until you either have the knowledge, in the same way that you know how to evaluate hotel programs, or your hotels or your airlines in terms of running RFPs. How do you get the skills really to judge the capability of the suppliers who want to sell you business?
It has that. So Michael, I think, Scott, you have to pick only one of us that you keep an eye on. Oh, that's not big on spot. No, very good. Pick one.
Oh, pick yourself. I guess I did. Well, when you're closest to me, so I'll you can work it the wicked stuff.
So to allude to that, if you ask the AI model what it picks on, the answer should be, it shouldn't fit anyone.
Yeah,
right.
I fit.
So that's the very point. You want to distinguish. So that unpredictability and what we're kind of trying to allude to is you need practitioners, just the same way you have a corporate channel manager to manage travel programs. You actually need practitioners in your business, and I mean actual practitioners that understand and spread the ability that you can bring. If you put it into business critical processes, don't be surprised if it's not having business.
Let's do it right. You have to have expertise and actually deploy product. And some of you could be coming.
Yes. I think ultimately it comes to check and balance and control and trust. Right. So if you take pilots, for example, in aircraft, right, it's proving that the aircraft land better by being driven by the computer than pilots. But I still want a man in the cockpit for that one incident, a pilot. I still want an individual in the cockpit to be able to ultimately be there if things go wrong, the lights won't go off, right?
Just curious, in the room, how many of you have policies at your company about sharing information with ChatGPT or how that should be put in place? I can say we do, if we have the board list time. Not a whole lot, it's interesting. All right, so let's bring this kind of the travel manager level. So what are some of the potentials for a travel manager? What are some of the ways that generative AI could help them in their jobs?
Well, I think you mentioned it. It's not quite at the large action models, which is still a concept rather than reality. That these models can not only reason and give you content, but also actually do things. Now, you can get them to do things, but by building your interface, but that's a whole different story. I think the key here is, what they can do today for certain tasks, especially the repetitive ones, is you can create what you can call assistants or agents that again, with the right foundation model, with the right training and right parameters, you can have an expert who can execute a task. And if you do other integration above that in terms of the workflow, you can, in essence, create virtual FTEs for your team. They can't do everything, and they need some supervision. But it's kind of a game changer because there's never been a travel management team group that I've ever met that complains about being over-resourced. You just have too many people, not enough work to do. So imagine now you have the unlimited number of FTEs that you can generate to execute certain tasks. And you can do that today.
I think that lends to, I'm not a corporate travel manager, but we have an ethos internally about when we hire folks, we have good developers that become great with the power of with AI. And great developers become awesome. So you're upskilling talent in your teams. And we find that actually we can go from, even if it's about AI becomes good becomes great becomes awesome. So if you think about that human-powered intelligence with AI, I think there's definitely opportunities for corporate travel managers to find, are there service issues that they use folks in their teams to do more with the power of AI. So I think there's loads of opportunities around
upskilling too.
Well, the other question you can ask sort of an elevator experiment, and you're asking yourself, in a given week, and interestingly, if you keep a diary, how many hours in that week do I really spend time doing strategic work that adds long-term value to my organization, and which has visibility with stakeholders that I will ultimately be rewarded for? That's a bit of a long sentence, but you get what I'm saying, right? There's so many trouble that have complained about firefighting and all sorts of tasks other than the important strategic stuff. Now, there's an opportunity, if you can take advantage of these models in the correct way, to create agents who can give you that time space to do that. And I think that's incredibly valuable. And in the cataclysm that's to come, David, those will be the survivor. That will be the single survivor.
Well, and the answer your policy questions, but then you get the same question: Can I fly business class on this trip?
No more of that.
Yes.
No more of that. It's more about let us work together. And you can do that internal consultant to your users, saying, let me advise you on how to get better experience and cut costs together. And let's actually write the plan that we can execute instead of fighting fires and answering questions about business travel.
It should be, this individual's traveled 9 times this month based on well-being. Should I actually change their policy dynamically to give them a business class flight? Not answering an FAQ. I think there's opportunities to transform the program. So I think that's a much better application using the corporate place.